this is going to be an interesting offseason for Arizona with Kylin Boswell and with a variety of members on this team. And we're going to kind of go through that right now. But first, with Kylin Boswell, to me, player accountability has to be a big thing of Arizona going forward. Big fan of what Tommy Lloyd does. Very big fan of what Tommy Lloyd does. But listen, there is a little bit of a sense that players are allowed to do essentially whatever they want. And I think Kylin Boswell is kind of an example of that, in that Kylin Boswell, let's be honest here, was not very good this season. He had some good games, but overall he was not very good. And he was guaranteed, no matter what happened, that he was going to play at least half the game. That just was not in Arizona's best interest. And then you factor in as well, we've all seen the gambling picture where no playing time was taken away from him. I'm kind of at the point where I like Tommy Lloyd a lot, but player accountability has to be a big part of this going forward.
Yeah, I just think there needs to be, Shelby put it well last night on our podcast, like a respectful fear. Like, right. You don't need to be cowering at your head coach, but you need to say, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to go have a drink. And then the back of your mind, you'd be like, you know what? Man, I'm going to get in trouble if I do this.
Right.
I'm not going to go get that drink. There's just none of that. I don't know if there's any of that off the court. And a lot of that, look, at the end of the day, a lot of that is player discipline too. Kylin's the only one that was getting in trouble for that stuff. Right. So a lot of it to me is, and I don't disagree with you with the accountability and all that, but a lot of that's on Kylin. Like, there's no pictures of Caleb Love or Keyshawn or Pelle, shit-faced or gambling or any of that because they didn't do it.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of that is on like Kylin.
Yeah, but that goes back to, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. He kind of hinted like, after the game, like, I got to change some of my ways, but it's like, I think there's blame to go around. I think we need to blame Kylin for not being mature enough. And I think we need to blame Tommy for not being like, hey, you better be mature enough or there's going to be consequences.
Yeah. And there just really wasn't any consequences. But again, I'm going to put a little bit more of this on Tommy. Listen, Kylin obviously had some off the court issues. That's been well documented, but also at the end of the day, this is also still a kid, and it's up to a coach to discipline. Now, again, I don't buy the whole thing. You know what your coach's best leverage is? A coach's best leverage is to be able to discipline a player with minutes. That never happened. And so this whole thing about, well, don't worry, I really got to him behind the scenes. Well, no, not really. And on top of that, when it comes to, on-court play, Jaden Bradley, there is no world where Jaden Bradley should be playing only 3 more minutes in a tournament game than Boswell. That to me is just, all right, no matter what happens, we have to play the so-and-so player this amount of time. That to me just isn't good enough, Sheer.
Yeah, we agree, Mike. You keep bringing it up, but we're on the same page. I know you're passionate about Jaden Bradley and Kylin Boswell. We're on the same page. Like, Kylin has a decision to make, and I think Arizona needs to give him that decision. If you want to come back, I'm cool with it, but you're not starting, and you're playing about 15 minutes. Let's call it the Kerr Kriisa offer, right?
Right.
And you can't do that bullshit. You can't get it. Sorry for my language. You can't get in trouble. You can't do any of that. Very short leash, right? Or I just think it's time for you to find another school. I think we know relatively soon. This week, I think that decision is made. And right now, again, things are fluid, blah, blah, blah. I would be slightly surprised if Kylin Boswell is on this team next season.
Yes. All right. Now let's see the whole we got here starting with Kylin, and that didn't work. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the players that are going to come that, could possibly come back and what this roster would look like for next year. First of all, Pelle Larsson and Caleb Love, they're not coming back. That's I would be stunned if they came back. Is that a fair assessment from you as well, Jason Shear?
If who came back?
Pelle Larsson or Caleb Love?
I think Pelle, Caleb, and Oumar are all gone.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about Oumar. I would like to get Oumar back, but at the same time, I do understand the issue that if Oumar were to come back, then there's a good chance that you're losing multiple guys on this roster and multiple guys that could probably play multiple years that probably have some high upside. It's kind of a give and take. In theory, I would like to have Oumar back because I think that going into the Big 12 that he provides you a little bit of toughness that this team doesn't otherwise have. But I do understand that, you've got a Krivas, you got a Dylan Anderson. You're probably going to go out and try to get a really athletic power forward. I get it both ways. And if it means 3 players as opposed to 1, I get it.
Yeah, a lot of times when we have these discussions postseason, I'll just say, people say, why does this guy, why is he leaving? And I'll say, well, eventually it's just time to go, right? Like, why is Caleb Love leaving? He doesn't have an NBA career ahead of him. He's not getting drafted. And sometimes it's just time to go. Like Kirk Kriisa, it was time to go. For Oumar, it feels like, and I would welcome Oumar back with open arms, but hypothetically, if Oumar comes back, you lose Krivas and Dylan Anderson and maybe one more front court player, or you can't get someone out of the portal, you got to make that choice. Is 1 year of Oumar better than 3 years of Krivas and 3 years of Dylan Anderson and whoever else might be coming down the pipe? It's tough, right?
Right.
And so that's the decision that coaching staffs have to make. And that's why I think in a way it's tough to bring Oumar back. Although Oumar's one of my favorite players I've ever covered. He's awesome. Right. I think he's a very good player. Sure, he's got some issues, but he's strong, he's Big 12, all that. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's just kind of time to move on.
All right, now Dylan Anderson, can he play the 4? For all these people out there talking mess about Dylan Anderson over the years, including Jason Scheer, Dylan Anderson very much factors into Arizona basketball's plans next year, and that includes at the 4 being a little bit of a stretch big man. This is true, Jason Scheer, it.
That doesn't mean he's good. It means that they think he'll be good. But yes, they absolutely, he is being treated like he will have a role next season. There is no doubt about it. I would assume he's a 4-man, right?
Yeah, he's definitely going to play the 4.
Yeah, he's not a 5. He's not a 5.
Right.
Look, we'll see, but they absolutely think that he will have some sort of role.
All right, now let's move over to the perimeter a little bit, and then we're going to hop all the way around here. But with the perimeter as well, there's 2 guys that are guaranteed to start, or I would at least hope are guaranteed to start. First one is Jaden Bradley, obviously, at the point guard spot. I would very, very much like to see Jaden Bradley start. And then KJ Lewis. KJ Lewis, both those dudes are guaranteed to start. And if they don't start, there is a massive problem. Something has gone wrong along the way. And then at that 2 guard, you got to imagine that it's going to be Josan Sanon unless they get somebody in the portal that is just really, really good.
Yeah, that would be my guess. I think if you were asking the freshman most likely to contribute, it's Bryant and Sanon. I think Sanon is probably the most likely to start. It's not a guarantee, but when you look at talent and what Arizona needs next year, you lose Caleb Love, right? You lose your pure scorer. So you say, okay, who's that replacement? Freshman-wise, that's what Sanon is. I mean, he is a pure scorer off screens and all that, dribble handoffs. That's going to be the guy.